Hello, we are students from Jakarta State University and we are from English Literature program. We would like to present our discussion about the relation between novella The Metamorphosis and its creator Franz Kafka. We would like to use biographical criticism theory and this descriptive analysis method. The aim of this discussion is to show the direct biographical relation of The Metamorphosis to Franz Kafka's life. My name is Fachrannisa Novianti, and two of my friends Nur Widiastuti and Salma will deliver this speech. Okay, first the intro will be delivered by the Nur Widiastuti and continued by Salma Mahjatina.
Hello, my name is Nur Widiastuti. I would like to explain upon the intro of this discussion consists of the definition of literature, novel and novella, brief information about the metamorphosis, research method, and biographical criticism theory. Literature. Literature is a body of written works. The name has traditionally been applied to those imaginative works of poetry and prose distinguished by the intention of their authors and the perceived aesthetic excellence of their execution. Literature may be classified according to a variety of systems, including language, national origin, historical period, genre, and subject matter. There are several types of literary work, like poetry, fiction, non-fiction, prose, and drama. Let's move on to novel and novella. The first is novel. Novel is the more common works of fiction that we encounter. A novel often involves multiple major characters, subplots, conflicts, point of view, and twists. Due to its considerable length, a novel is meant to be read over a period of days. The plot moves forward through many characters, action, thoughts, time periods, and situations. The reader often feels that the story deviates and is affected by the involvement of different substories and subplots, by passage of time, or by the involvement of new important characters. This is considered the real beauty of a novel. The word count of a novel is really debatable. This is because different genres have different requirements. However, a novel is usually no shorter than 40,000 words. For modern publication, editors often consider a novel one which is spread over 80,000 to 120,000 words. Romance novels, however, can be shorter than that. On the other hand, a fantasy, horror, and science fiction usually see works of greater length. The word count for fantasy novels often touch the 240,000 mark. Some famous books like Lord of the Rings series are famous for containing so many words. The Harry Potter series has 1,084,170 words, and Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix itself has 257,145 words. Next is novellas. Novellas were first introduced in the early Renaissance or 1300s, but the genre did not become firmly established until the late 18th and the early 19th century. A novella is longer than a novelette and is sometimes called a long short story or a short novel. Although in the past, novellas were commonly written and published, and some to great acclaim, like A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess and The Metamorphosis by Kafka, for example. These days, it is considered to be an awkward land, and it may be more difficult to get a novel published. There are 70,000 to 40,000 words in novella. Let's move on to The Metamorphosis. The author of The Metamorphosis is Franz Kafka. It has original title Die Verwandlung. It published in Austria-Hungary, or today called Czech Republic. The original language is German, and its genre is absurdist fiction. The publisher of The Metamorphosis is Kurt Verlag in Leipzig, and it's published in 1915. The Metamorphosis is about Gregor Samsa, a traveling salesman who wakes up one day to find that he has transformed into a giant insect. His family is disgusted with him, especially when he is no longer able to earn income. Gregor eventually dies after deciding that he is a burden to his family. The Metamorphosis has taken its place as one of the most widely read and influential works of 20th century fiction. As W.H. Auden wrote, Kafka is important to us because his predicament is the predicament of modern man. Let's move on to research method. In this research, writers analyze the story The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka with descriptive analysis method. With this method, writers try to describe, explain, and analyze the story using biographical theory. Writers also analyze the similarities between the main character, Gregor Samsa, and the author himself. Next is literature review. The first is biographical criticism theory. Biographical criticism is literary criticism which analyzes the author's life to show the relationship between the author's life and their works of literature. It is also analyzed the establishment which shapes the culture and mind of the author.
Hello, my name is Salma Mahjatina Zahra, and I will deliver to you the next topic, which is biography of Franz Kafka and literary devices. And it is consists of setting, characters, plot, point of view, and then theme. Next, we have biography of Franz Kafka. Franz Kafka was born in Prague on July the 3rd in 1883. He was born into a wealthy family dominated by his father, and he grew up in the shadow of his father's authority, which made a great impact on him later. After two brothers died in infancy, he became the eldest child and remained for the rest of his life conscious of his role as elder brother. Otla, the youngest of his three sisters, became the family member closest to him. After finishing the high school, he studied chemistry. After that, he transferred to German and took German literature. But due to his father's disapproval, he ended up studying law 2 weeks after his enrollment. All of his education just for sake of his father's approval. In reality, he only wanted to be a writer. His most popular and best-selling story, The Metamorphosis, was completed in 1912 and published in 1915. The story was written from Kafka's third-floor room, which offered a direct view of Flata River and a tall bridge. The Metamorphosis also expressed the anxieties and alienation felt by many the 20th century Europe and North America. In 1923, Kafka went to Berlin to devote himself to writing. During a vacation on the Baltic coast later that year, he met Dora Diamond, a young Jewish socialist. The couple lived in Berlin until Kafka's health significantly worse during the spring of 1924. After a brief final stay in Prague, where Diamond joined him, he died of tuberculosis in a clinic near Vienna. Next, we have literary devices. First, we have setting. The setting is on the Samsa's family apartment in an unspecified city. And then next, we have characters. In here, we have 10 characters. First, we have Gregor Samsa. He is the protagonist of this story. He is a traveling salesman who hates his job, but is forced to keep in order to support his family and pay off his father's debts. Gregor suddenly finds himself transformed into a giant insect. Never coming to terms with his metamorphosis, he struggles with intense feelings of guilt, as if his inability to support his family were his own fault. Felt freed from his job, Gregor is now a burden to his family and is kept locked in his room. Isolated and neglected, Gregor is a metaphor for the human being oppressed by capitalism and alienated from work, family, and himself. Next, we have Grit. Grit is a Gregor's younger sister. He is the only one in the family with whom Gregor has intimate with. At first, she takes it upon herself to clean his room and feed him. With time, she loses interest in this and leaves him alone. Grit, who first cared so much for Gregor, is also the first to assert the family must get rid of him. Gregor had planned to use all his money to send Grit to conservatory to study violin, and her playing up against his humanity. Third, we have Mr. Samsa, Gregor's father. Having lived as a laborious to unsuccessful life, and his collapsed his business has become exceptionally lazy, doing nothing while his son earns all the money. When misfortune strikes, Mr. Samsa puts on a uniform and goes to work. He is suspicious of the transformed of Gregor from the beginning, and always assumes that worse if his son emerges from his room. He first warns Gregor while trying to shove him back into his room, and then cripples him by throwing an apple into his back. Fourth, we have Mrs. Samsa. Gregor's mother is also forced to go to work to make money for the family. Her relation to Gregor is one of dutiful and loving mother, but her tendency to fawn upon him is not conducive to helping him. After begging to see Gregor, she is finally allowed into his room, but faints as soon as he appears. She will then proceed to save Gregor from his father's apple-throwing rod. Yet, since Mrs. Samsa is extremely quiet and always does what she is told, her opinions on family affairs remains unknown, and her personality is subsumed in her husband's authority. 5. We have the thief. Gregor's boss at work is the great symbol of everything wrong with capitalism. He sits behind his desk, talking down to his employees. Gregor knows that if he calls in sick for the first time in 5 years, his chief would come in person to call him lazy. 6. We have thief clerk. The thief clerk is the thief's mouthpiece. He himself arrives at Gregor's house when the former is late to work and thus throws the entire family into disorder. When Gregor does not unlock his room, the thief's clerk tells that Gregor in front of the family that he is under suspicion of having stolen money and that his work is very unsatisfactory, though his isn't true. 7. Chairwoman. The chairwoman is the last servant left in the family, taken on after the others are dismissed. She is not repulsed by Gregor, but rather attempts to play with him, annoying him greatly. She is the only character who attributes intelligence to Gregor. The chairwoman is excited both with Gregor's existence and by his death. And then 8, we have the lodgers. Caricatures of gentlemen, the lodgers dominate the overly servile Samsa family. They are taken on because the family needs money and they take it upon themselves to run the household, making sure that everything is ordered and nothing is superfluous. The lodgers carefully inspect their food and rudely show displeasure at Creed's violin playing. At the first sign of Gregor, they give notice and refuse to pay for the room. Mr. Samsa finally asserts himself, revealing the lodger's cowardice in the face of authority. 9. We have the servant girl, or Anna. The servant girl stays on after Gregor's metamorphosis, but asks that she be allowed to lock herself in the kitchen unless she is summoned. She is dismissed by Samsas when they run out of money to pay her. And the last, we have Cook. Begs for permission to leave the family as soon as she finds out about Gregor's metamorphosis. She is extremely grateful when she is allowed to go and promises to tell no one about Gregor. Like the other servants, the cook serves to demonstrate the high life of the family when they was living at Gregor's expense. Next, we have plot. First, we have exposition. In the exposition, it explains about the Gregor Samsa awakens as an insect-like creature. Next, we have rising action. In rising action, we have 5 stages. First, we have Mr. Samsa loses his temper and hurts one of Gregor's leg badly. And then for the second stage, we have Mrs. Samsa who faints seeing a Gregor. And then third, we have Mr. Samsa who appears at his son's, injuring him very badly. And then fourth, we have Gregor leaves his room and see and her Gret playing violin. And then the fifth, we see that Bertha spot Gregor and question Mr. Samsa. And the third, we have climax. In climax, we see that Creed urges his parents to get rid of Gregor. And then the fourth, we have falling action. In falling action, we see that Gregor returns to his room and then dying in the next morning. And as a resolution, we have the Samsa's family take a day to relax in the country. And the story also has a third point of view. It means that the narrator describes the events of what Gregor sees and hears. It also describes about what Gregor thinks and feels toward his circumstances. And then in this story we have themes such as absurdity of life, and then disconnection between mind and body, the empathy, and then alienations.
Hello, I'm Fachrannisa Novianti, and I'll tell you about the result of our discussion and also the conclusion about the relation between Franz Kafka and the Metamorphosis. The Metamorphosis contains direct biographical reference to Kafka and his family's life. Gregor's father's actions stem from Kafka's hatred against his own father for his non-stop disapproval of Kafka's writing style. Kafka depicts Gregor as a lonely, insignificant failure because that is how Kafka sees himself. Franz's inability to settle down with a woman is suddenly noted in Gregor Samsa's character, as if Kafka's low self-esteem. While not easily noticed, Kafka's relationship with his younger sister is mirrored in the metamorphosis between Gregor and Greed as well. They get along very well for the majority of the story, but eventually Gregor feels betrayed. Kafka used the character in the Metamorphosis to form a literary model of his own twisted relationship with his family members and himself. Franz Kafka's dark literary style is unmistakably original and has earned him his reputation as one of the greatest 20th century writers. His old work was fueled by a staggering amount of family stress and self-hate. Much of his stress came from his father, Hermann Kafka, who disapproved of Franz's writing, lifestyle, and also his physique. Kafka's father overshadowed him so much that Franz developed a stutter only when speaking to his father. In the Metamorphosis, Gregor Samsa's father treats his son with comparable disrespect. When Gregor's father sees him in insect form outside of his room, he brutally throws an apple at his son, almost killing him. Earlier in the Metamorphosis, it was revealed that Gregor has been the only working member of his family, providing for his mother, father, and sister. During his wealthy time, Gregor's father had been saving up money, but not telling Gregor anything about it. While this money was available, Gregor had been working relentlessly at the job, which he hated, to pay off his father's debt. The connection between the twist of father-son relationship in both Kafka's life and the Metamorphosis is undeniable, but clearly points to biographical elements in the Metamorphosis. The most depressing thing about Franz Kafka's life was his isolation from everyone and everything around him. As Jews, the entire Kafka's family was isolated from the majority of the population of their home city, Prague. Furthermore, Franz personally found himself more intellectually inclined than most of his ancestors. This prevented Franz from attaching to his heritage, among other things. Kafka even proclaimed that he felt isolated from God himself, whom he referred to as the true and indestructible being. If we project Kafka onto Gregor Samsa's character game, more similarities can be seen. Both were plenty old enough but were not married and were forced to live with their parents. Gregor's habit of locking all of his doors, even at home, served to further isolate himself from the rest of the world, including his family. Further similarities can be found in even the most minute details of Kafka's writing. At the beginning of the Metamorphosis, when Gregor finds that he's an insect, he says that he's in a real room meant out for human habitation. The use of the word human isolates Gregor from the rest of his original species. Gregor from the rest of his original species is only the second paragraph of the entire story. In Gregor's room is a picture of a woman in verse, which he has become attached to over time. He climbed to the wall, preventing his mother and sister from taking it out of his room. Gregor's attachment to this picture symbolized his lack of contact with women, other than his mother and sister. Kafka himself was very similar, in that he wanted the companionship of women very badly but never achieved a marriage through either of his two engagements. Santa's relationship with his sister Puti is another clear biographical reference to Kafka's life. Santa's sister is the only one in Gregor's house who can stand aside of him and take time to figure out what he can eat. For Kafka, his younger sister, Otla, allowed him to move in with her temporarily when he was particularly ill. At one point in Kafka's life, he felt that he should quit working in the afternoons to do more writing, but his parents disagreed. In an unexpected change of side, Otla agreed with her parents and Franz was forced to remain at work for full days. This event made Franz feel as if he was betrayed by his own sister, whom he had trusted more than anyone else in the family. Within 2 weeks, Kafka included a similar incident at the end of the Metamorphosis, in which Gregor abandoned all hope for Gregor's recovery. Of all the animals that Santa could have been changed into, an insect is made the most sense when applied to both the story and Kafka's life. People tend to view insects as dirty, insignificant creatures. Kafka's negative views of himself painted a picture of himself as an insignificant failure, much like an insect. As soon as Gregor is unable to earn the family money, he becomes an insignificant failure, again like an insect. Sansa's self-esteem slowly spiraled downward until he discovered that he is better off dead than alive to his family. This may be another biographical reference to the numerous times that Kafka contemplated suicide due to his low self-esteem. So, in conclusion, Franz Kafka's life is miserably lonely. He is a German speaker living in Zagreb, Jew living in hyper-anti-Semitic society, and also felt a big pressure from his very own family. Gregor Samsa's transformation into a horrible giant bug is often viewed as an expression of Kafka's feeling of isolation and inferiority living in society at that time. Kafka's father's disapproval and emotional abuse influenced Kafka's mind and psychological state until he felt inferior to the rest of the world. This psychological abuse forced Kafka to write his own dark, realistic style and turn to writing as his primary source of expression. Because he felt inferior, the only way that Kafka could fight back at his father was to do so in his writing. In the Metamorphosis, Kafka portrayed himself as Gregor, his father as Gregor's father, and his sister as Gregor's sister. Franz made negative statements about his father through Gregor's father's thought and action, and reenacted his relationship with his sister between Gregor's and Greek. Kafka used Gregor's insect form to show his own isolation and inability to interact with the rest of the world. With the dog, the Metamorphosis was written as a direct biographical reference to Kafka's life, isolation, and constant family conflict.
That's all from our group. We hope this video can give you new information about the related topic. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.